Alright, so I thought I'd make kind of a before and after type of video. This is this section of pasture is the most degraded on the farm. It was more than 30, maybe close to 40% bare dirt when I took over. The guy had been making hay on it and just taking it away, and it hadn't been fertilized or even just mowed and left to, you know, let it mow it and just leave the stuff sit there in a long time. So there was just really no fertility, very little topsoil, just clay subsoil, fairly steep, so the water would rush right off of it and take most of the nutrients with it. What I did this spring, since I did the grazing was having an effect, but I wanted to introduce some more palatable species so I could get them. See what I'd put the animals on it, but there wasn't much here that they wanted to eat, so they wouldn't spend a whole lot of time here and give me the impact I wanted. So I did a light disking, the whole thing, and I got it broken up into paddocks. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then a big bottom 4 paddocks broken up by swales and electric fencing here. And I rotate them with a temporary fence. That's my setup, just 2 wires. And these guys all respect it real well, and I run them all together. So anyway, I disked it up and I put down a variety of seeds, some clover. You can see the Lespedeza is just really going wild. Korean Lespedeza. There was some fescue, rye, and a couple other things in the mix that I can't quite remember right now. But they're loving the Lespedeza, and I'm hoping what'll happen is that as the summer begins to wane and it gets a little cooler out, some of the fescue and the rye will start coming up that has been kind of protected in this overstory of fescue, the seedlings, or not fescue, of Lespedeza. So underneath this Lespedeza is some grasses and seedlings and whatnot, and I'm hoping that'll kind of come up as it gets cooler, and that'll extend the grazing to keep these guys interested in coming over here. You see that pig with a little radish on his nose. There was radish in the mix. So yeah, so this is kind of what everything looked like when I took over. It was just a very diverse mix of kind of weeds and starting to turn into a lot of blackberry and woody, woody weeds, rather than, I'm fine with the broadleafs and whatnot for the pasture, but I was kind of trying to hope to move away from some of the more woody, less palatable stuff. You kind of see the impact that the pigs are having here. It looks pretty dang disastrous, and I was, when I first was seeing this impact, I was kind of nervous about it myself, thinking that it was kind of more of a destructive thing than a regenerative thing. But it seems to be that they're actually getting down and getting at the roots of these more woody weeds. The blackberry, the cows really like eating the top of the blackberry, but you can see what's down here. I mean, there's this stuff. They just love getting down there, and this one's kind of black and dead, but you can imagine a nice big juicy green one of these. The pigs are just going to love it. So they're actually getting down and eating. They're not just digging for no reason. And the stuff that they root down and dig out is not going to come back. So this really only happens this bad, a few times. And then once your pasture is more established and you have a little bit better sward, and this is providing, of course, you're going to move your animals regular, that this will all come back in real nice, and you won't even know it's there. And then the texture, you can kind of see these puddles everywhere. Well, that's rain catchment, I mean, and that'll be there, it'll fill in to a limited capacity, but it'll be there for a while. It'll be a nice rain catchment texture. And they don't do it everywhere. Like you see, this is a pretty bad here, but as you go through, only a certain spot. So they really are just looking for, there's something growing there, and I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but there's something under there that they want to eat, and once they've eaten it, it doesn't come back, and then they don't dig that deep anymore. But you can kind of see there's a lot of black cherry in here, and they're kind of making it look pretty sad. You don't really want to have a lot of black cherry growing. Even, you know, I know it's supposed to be toxic. They don't seem to be interested in eating it. Maybe the roots, but that's about it. So I'm gonna go and show what the other pasture ended up looking like after. It was a little bit better off when I started than this one. So what I'm assuming is that this one will, these pastures on this side will kind of turn more into what I have over there. It's just taking them a little bit longer to get the fertility back and to repair the kind of the bad management practices, and you know, you can't blame anyone, because no one really, the people who owned it really didn't ever come here, and they were just renting the little house for a little bit of money every month, and no one was really doing anything here except for brush hogging, and then they'd take away, if there was any grass worth saving, any hay worth saving, they would just take it away. So that was the management. I'll show the other side. Enjoy. All right, so this paddock is on the other field, on the other side that I was talking about. This one had much more animal impact this spring. I ran them through here 3 times in rapid succession. You know, with a month rest or so between each time they were on a certain patch of grass. That was to leave that side to rest after I had done some light disking and some reseeding to try to let the seeds get established and let the plants grow up a little bit, to take a little bit of grazing. I am grazing it now. So this side is seems very uniform, and this side was already a little bit more fertile than the other side, and I think that has to do with the native hydrology of this spot. There's a bunch of underground water here, so I think it takes a little bit more to dry it out. The slope is a bit less, so it's not as eroded, and I have a suspicion that somebody probably at least limed it, maybe did some kind of fertilization on it. So what I got here is the patches of broom sedge are getting less and less. You know, you can see there's broom sedge there, and it's just surrounded by stuff that's not broom sedge. A little bit more of better looking grass. You know, you see here the broom sedge is really just not as happy as it used to be. Kind of see there's you see these patches here, broom sedge, and this was and a lot of clover coming up, which is nice. Clover, but it's looking pretty uniform. I mean, there's a lot of planting in it, and the sedge grass is going away, and I think that has to do with the change in the pH due to the animal impact. You know, the animals are going around and fertilizing it, and the pH of the soil is changing slowly, and the broom sedge just doesn't want to stay there. You know, and it looks pretty good stuff right now, but as it goes into the winter, it's the only thing standing up high, and it shades everything else out, and it turns into, like what it says, a broom in the winter when it dries out. It's just no good for grazing, and it puts up a whole lot of seed. So it's really not something I want to have around, but I don't really want to do any kind of drastic measures or do a whole bunch of work to move it. I really kind of like how it's slowly transitioning itself, just with the animal impact, and the management style that I have here is that's what's making the difference. Now it's kind of hard to tell, but what I'm walking on is really lumpy. It's you know, when I was showing on the other side those big pig divots, you know, the big rooting areas You can kind of see they're right in here. This is a big low ditch, low dip here, you know. I mean, that's what it looked like. This looked like what I showed over there, and it's all filled in. And when it rains, those will be, you know, small puddles, and it'll give the water a chance to soak in. It'll stop the water so it doesn't move off across the land so fast. So what looks like when the pigs are making the mess, it looks like a big disaster. It actually turns out to be a benefit, you know. And it gives you all these little microclimates. It gives you some diversity in plants. I think it gives you know, there's plants that want to live in a lower area where it's wet. You can kind of see here there's even some bare dirt left from where they were here last, where there was a big dig out for the pigs here, a big rooting area, and I think it's a benefit. So what was here, there was an awful lot of Johnson grass is why they were rooting on this side. And these, I don't see any coming back. You can see up here, kind of where the dog is, that was all a big stand of Johnson grass, and there's just not one blade of it anymore. They got it all, and it didn't take very long. Not that Johnson grass is a bad thing, but what I'm looking for in my management style, mostly what I'm managing for, is carrying through winter with no hay. That's my main objective, is I want to keep my carrying capacity to my winter carrying capacity and not go past that, so I do not have to make or buy hay or feed hay. I'm really not really wanting to do that. So you kind of see what on this side, there's a little bit of more water underneath it than on the other side. We got a nice little seep here that runs. It stays wet there's mostly always water in here unless it gets real dry. And right now we've had a little bit of rain, so it's nice and full. But this is another area. The pigs had this whole thing just completely dug up, you know, and it was just bare clay, and it fills in right away. You know, it might not be the greatest stuff in the world, but when you have pigs, they're going to root and they're going to wallow. And this is a spring in the middle of their pasture, and they definitely did wallow here. They made a big wallow. But now it's a kind of a nice little feature. You got to have these nice little ephemeral pools, and you'll have wildlife and birds showing up to it. You know, my chickens, I don't have to bucket water out to the chickens. They can walk over here and get something to drink, and it's fine for that. And insects and bees, I'm sure all kinds of amphibians and other stuff are just liking this little water feature that I didn't do anything to create except for move animals around with electric fence. This year I planted a bunch of chestnuts on these swale mounds, so you kind of see one here and one here and one here. I planted them about every 10 feet, 500 chestnuts, and I planted 200 pawpaw, and the pawpaw didn't do as well. I'm guessing maybe 25% of them kind of lived. You can see one right here. I don't know if I don't want to get too close to the fence. There's just little baby leaves coming off of them. I don't know if it's going to survive even. Nothing's fooling with it or eating it. They're just not thriving, and I'm not exactly sure why. And then I planted those pawpaws on this side in between the chestnuts, and then on the other side I planted red mulberry. So right there is a red mulberry tree, and 200 of each of those. I had these wood piles here. I was having a hard time mowing around them, and the wood was getting kind of rotten and punky, and it wasn't really worth saving anymore. I wasn't going to be able to move them off site and sell them. I didn't want to bury them, so I just made them into a kind of a nice big round pile. So now it's easy to mow around. I'm guessing that there's probably going to be an awful lot of box elder growing up on it. So it'll be like a nice little oasis of trees in the middle of the paddock. And there's a few of those here. So there's one there and one there, and then a big one here. So, I mean, if you ever get in a situation where you made way too much firewood, you know, you can figure out something to do with it. So yeah, so that's a little update on the pasture, and enjoy.